All right, music fans, welcome back. It is I, Dave, the Real Music Observer, observing real music in real time for real people just like you and just like me. On this date in 1983, February 22nd, Kilroy was released by Styx. The album that brought Styx to a screeching halt. Uh, but in hindsight, folks, is it that bad of an album? And was it unusual for Styx to sound a little bit more like, say, what Queen was doing? Both bands, if you look at their track record and history, had a much more muscular hard rock sound in the mid to late 70s. Queen actually even more so than Styx. But yet Queen, if you listen to things like Hot Space, you want to talk about schmaltz, what about Flash? So the point being is that Roboto, in comparison, is kind of right in that lane. It's not a strange place for Styx to have gone. And writing yet another iconic ballad where Dennis DeYoung gets to sing and sound like everybody's favorite high school balladeer. When you're cranking up the radio in the car, you've got Don't Let It End probably blaring at some kind of school function or in the car. So there was nothing wrong with the album. Both the other guys had full participation. You might not like the rest of the album, but it's interesting music. Both JY and Tommy bought in so much that they decided to sing. And then, of course, the booking agents. Yes, the booking agents. They're going out on the road dressed up like these characters from Kilroy and doing the stage routine. And, I forget who they're on tour with. You can see it in the documentary, but it didn't go well, apparently. They were getting booed and so forth. It was just lousy planning. I can see their point there, but I don't know if the band breaks up because of it. Dennis made this horrible decision to do this concept album. Really? That's interesting, because there's this new Styx album out right now called The Mission that came out last summer, and yours truly loves it. And guess what? It's a concept album. Now, the difference people will say is, well, The Mission kind of rocks, and it's interesting, and it's about, going to Mars and space exploration. Everybody can wrap their brains around that. Whereas all of this Dennis DeYoung futuristic mumbo jumbo where he's talking about things kind of, falling apart and, like he did on The Grand Illusion, which was, how visionary was that song? Anybody? Question? Look, everybody knows we're going to go to Mars. It's inevitable. So that was basically just marketing to what's eventually going to happen. That's not predicting what's going to happen like Dennis DeYoung has done throughout his career, both as a solo artist and as a member of Styx. So, was Kilroy a bomb? No, I was there. It's kind of like Martha Quinn talking about the Billy Squier video, Rock Me Tonight. She was there, and she said, no, nobody at the network thought that was the end of Billy Squier. And I don't think any Styx fans back in 83 or 84 thought that was the end of Styx. These guys kind of look back at it and say, oh, that was the worst. Well, you know what it brought on? It brought on a very stagnant solo career for Tommy and for Dennis. Dennis gets a version of Styx back together again without Tommy for end of the century, which I think Dennis was still trying to wrap his mind around some of the concepts that he had written as a solo artist and also as a member of Styx when Kilroy was out. Of course, Tommy wasn't there for that. And then we haven't had Dennis in Styx since that configuration. Of course, they did get together for a live concert, everybody, back in, I think it was 97, was Return to Paradise tour. And great live tour. You got to watch that. That's a DVD. It shows everybody out there having a great time and actually performing as Styx. Since then, you've had things like Cyclorama and this covers album they did without Dennis, of course, and they have this guy from Canada who shall remain nameless for this video because I just don't want to talk about them. Look, their album The Mission, I've given it a big enthusiastic thumbs up, even with the dude from Canada with the spinning keyboards and just the lollipop guild going on. But I'm just a guy who believes that these guys more or less said, you know what, we like our bread and butter, but we're going to get rid of the bread, which is Dennis, okay, and we're going to try to do it ourselves. And it hasn't worked. Up until now, it hasn't really worked. I get that The Mission is a good album, but I also get that the vision, yes, the vision, believe it or not, on Kilroy was good enough for the time. If you look at where everybody was going, musically speaking, bands like Queen, like I've mentioned before, Kilroy was right in that lane, and it deserves praise. How many commercials has Mr. Roboto been used in? Okay? Now, that may be probably anti what Dennis wanted the song to be used for, but it's also kind of woven into our culture and our history. And you know what? The goofiness of it, the quirkiness of it, I think of Devo with the potted plant things on their heads, and the marching and all that. That is etched into our consciousness, and you can thank Dennis DeYoung for that. I mean, that's his vision. So it may be a nerdy vision, it may be a quirky vision, it may not be a heavy metal vision, but it was a vision, and it's probably a stronger vision than anything else Styx has come up with since then, other than The Mission, which again was more or less foretelling what we already know is probably going to happen. Dennis DeYoung is a guy who writes with big ideas like The Grand Illusion and things like that, Paradise Theater. These are big concepts that Dennis wrote with the help of those guys, and it's just kind of weird how they kicked him to the curb. In any event, my name's Dave. This is The Real Music Observer. What do you think? What do you think about this? I mean, yeah, some people just hate this album. They just can't stand Kilroy. And then this, I know, Music Time came out. It's just, there's some bad stuff going on there. But regroup, take a couple of years off, come back, get a new concept. The 80s were very sort of ripe and fertile for more great Styx music, and we never got to hear it. Instead, we got so-so solo albums from both Tommy and from Dennis. I'm Dave. This is The Real Music Observer. We'll be back with more real music in real time for real people. Don't forget, $1 on Patreon. I did post something on Patreon. It's just a screed about some stuff that's happened recently. It's not all that entertaining, and now I'm getting feedback from Patreon, so, the more I post, the more work I need to do, so just keep that in mind. It's fine, though. It's fine. I'm just $1 a month. It's worth it. I'll look at all of them. It's not a problem. If I can get 1,000 people, 2,000 people at $1 a month, hey, this channel will be on forever, and then people from various countries will be very upset. All right, I'm done. I will talk to you soon. Have a good one.